My mother-in-law stole my husband's inheritance, hid letters from his dead father and helped his brother sabotage his career for years. I, 34 female, have been married to my husband Jeremy, 36 male, for 6 years now, but I've known him for almost 10. We met at a friend's barbecue where he was the quiet guy in the corner reading a book. That's what attracted me to him first, his calm, focused nature. When we started dating, his family seemed perfect. His mother Helen, 58 female, welcomed me with open arms, and his brother Tom, 32 male, was always cracking jokes and making everyone laugh. Looking back, I should have noticed the red flags, but I was so in love with Jeremy that I ignored them. Jeremy grew up in a household where his mother clearly favored Tom. After their dad passed away when Jeremy was 18 and Tom was 14, Helen became extremely protective of Tom while pushing Jeremy to be more independent. Jeremy never complained, but I've seen old family videos where she would praise Tom for getting C grades while criticizing Jeremy for not getting perfect A's. Jeremy is incredibly successful now. He worked his way up from nothing, putting himself through engineering school by working 2 jobs. He started as a junior developer and through sheer hard work, became a senior engineer at a major tech company. Meanwhile, Tom dropped out of college after 1 semester, claiming it wasn't for him. He's been living with their mom ever since, bouncing between part-time jobs at various retail stores and restaurants. Helen always defends him, saying he's a free spirit who hasn't found his calling yet, while constantly finding fault with Jeremy's career choices. The real issues started about 2 years ago. Tom had just lost another job, this time at a game store where he was caught playing games during his shift instead of working. Helen called Jeremy crying about how Tom was depressed and needed family support. She suggested he move in with us temporarily since we have a 4-bedroom house and only use 2 rooms. Jeremy, being the caring brother he is, agreed without even discussing it with me first. What was supposed to be 2 weeks turned into 3 months of complete hell. Tom would eat all our food without replacing anything. He would use our streaming services and change all the passwords. He'd leave wet towels on our wooden furniture and stains on our couch. He invited his gaming friends over without asking, and they would stay until 3 a.m. playing loudly while Jeremy and I tried to sleep before work. Not once did he offer to contribute to groceries or utilities. But these annoying habits were just the surface issues. Strange things started happening around the house, especially with Jeremy's work stuff. His laptop charger went missing the night before a big presentation, and we found it in the guest bathroom after he had to buy a new one. Important client files would disappear from his desk, only to reappear days later in random places like the laundry room. His laptop crashed 3 times in 2 months, always before important meetings. At first, we chalked it up to bad luck and Tom's general carelessness. But then I started working from home 2 days a week due to office renovations. That's when I noticed more concerning patterns. Tom would hang around Jeremy's home office when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Once, I caught him with Jeremy's work laptop at 2 a.m. When I asked what he was doing, he said he was just charging his phone, but the laptop was open and he quickly closed it when he saw me. Helen started showing up unannounced during this time too. She would just walk in without knocking. Tom had given her a garage code without asking us, and go straight to Jeremy's office to clean. When I told her we had a cleaning service and she didn't need to do that, she got offended and said I was trying to make her feel unwelcome in her son's home. The breaking point came last week. I had a migraine and left work early without telling anyone. When I got home, I heard voices in our kitchen. Helen and Tom were there, not knowing I was home. I was about to announce my presence when I heard them talking about Jeremy. Helen was telling Tom he needed to try harder because Jeremy was getting too comfortable in his success. She said something about how Jeremy's arrogance was tearing the family apart and how he needed to be knocked down a few pegs. Then Tom mentioned something about deleting emails from Jeremy's work laptop that would teach him some humility. They talked about previous times they'd sabotaged his work and laughed about how he never suspected them. I recorded the last part of their conversation on my phone because I knew Jeremy would need to hear it himself. Then I walked into the kitchen and confronted them. Tom immediately tried to laugh it off as a joke, but Helen's reaction showed their true colors. Instead of denying it or being embarrassed, she got defensive and angry. She said I didn't understand family dynamics and that sometimes parents need to humble their children. She actually tried to justify their actions by saying Jeremy had become arrogant with his success and needed to be reminded of his roots. I lost it. I told them to get out of my house immediately. Helen tried to protest, saying she had a right to be there because she was Jeremy's mother. I threatened to call the police if they didn't leave. As they were leaving, Helen had the nerve to tell me I was destroying their family with my toxic influence over Jeremy. When Jeremy got home, I showed him the recording. He was devastated but not completely surprised. He revealed that similar things had happened at his previous jobs: missing documents, corrupted files, missed alarms before important meetings. He'd never wanted to believe his family was behind it, so he'd always blamed himself for being disorganized. This is where I might be the asshole. I told Jeremy I'm completely done with his family. I don't want them in our house ever again, and I'm canceling our Christmas plans with them. We usually host Christmas at our house, and it's a huge family tradition. Jeremy agrees that his mother and brother betrayed him, but he's struggling because they're still family and Christmas has always been their big reunion time. Helen has been calling and texting nonstop, crying about how we're destroying family traditions and how Christmas won't be the same without us. She's even got other family members calling us, saying we're overreacting and that family conflicts shouldn't affect holiday celebrations. Some of our friends think I'm being too harsh. They say I should let Jeremy see his family even if I don't want to be around them. They argue that family is family, no matter what, and that Christmas might be a good time to work things out. But I can't stand the thought of pretending everything is normal after discovering they've been actively trying to harm my husband's career. I don't want these toxic people in our lives anymore, especially not during what's supposed to be a joyful holiday. So, Ida for putting my foot down and canceling Christmas with the in-laws? Update 1. Wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up like it did. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Your comments helped me feel less crazy about this whole situation. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and I need to share because things have gotten even messier than I imagined. After reading comments suggesting we check our home security, Jeremy and I decided to review our camera footage. We installed cameras 6 months ago after Jeremy's second laptop incident, but we had never bothered to look through the older recordings. What we found made my blood boil. Over the past 6 months, Tom had been entering our house nearly every day while we were at work, using a spare key we didn't even know existed. Sometimes he came alone, sometimes with Helen. The cameras caught them systematically going through our things, drawer by drawer, room by room, like they were conducting some kind of investigation. We watched footage of them spending hours in Jeremy's home office, taking pictures of his work documents, going through his desk, and even logging into his computer. There were videos of Tom copying files onto a USB drive and Helen photographing papers from Jeremy's briefcase. They went through our bedroom, our closets, even our attic storage. But what really got me was watching them steal from us. Small things at first, pieces of jewelry I thought I had misplaced, cash from our emergency fund that I assumed we had spent and forgotten about. They took Jeremy's childhood photos, his high school yearbooks, even his old baseball card collection that his dad had given him. They went through our mail, taking some pieces and putting them back slightly opened. The most heartbreaking part was watching them take items that had belonged to Jeremy's dad. His old watch that Jeremy thought he had lost during our move last year. A signed baseball Jeremy's dad had given him for his 16th birthday. His dad's dog tags from his military service. Items that meant nothing to them but everything to Jeremy. We spent 3 days going through all the footage, documenting everything we could see them taking. Jeremy was quiet through most of it, but I could see him getting angrier and angrier. The final straw was footage of Helen in our kitchen, opening a letter addressed to Jeremy from his dad's old lawyer. She read it, put it in her purse, and then spent 20 minutes practicing a story to tell Jeremy about how he must have forgotten to update his address with the lawyer's office. We decided to confront them with the evidence. We invited them over, set up our laptop with some of the footage ready to play, and waited. Helen arrived first, already playing the victim about how we'd been avoiding her calls. Tom showed up late, barely looking us in the eye. When we played the first clip of them entering our house, Helen tried to wave it off. She said of course she had a key, she was Jeremy's mother and needed to be able to check on him. When we showed them going through our things, she claimed she was just cleaning and organizing. But when we played the clip of her stealing the letter, something in her broke. She started crying, not the fake tears she usually used to manipulate Jeremy, but real, ugly crying. That's when she revealed the truth about Jeremy's inheritance. Apparently, their dad had left specific instructions about his estate. The house was supposed to be split between both sons, but a significant portion of his investments and savings were meant solely for Jeremy. The dad had written that since Jeremy was more responsible and had clear goals, he wanted to make sure he had the resources to achieve them. Helen admitted she had hidden this from Jeremy for years. She said she had used most of the money to support Tom because she thought he needed it more. She kept making excuses, saying Jeremy was doing fine on his own, that Tom needed extra help, that she was just trying to be fair to both her sons. She even tried to argue that Jeremy's dad had been wrong to favor him and that she was just correcting an injustice. When Jeremy asked about the letters and personal items they had taken, Helen broke down completely. She admitted there were dozens of letters from their dad to Jeremy that she had intercepted over the years. Letters meant to be given to Jeremy at specific milestones, graduation, first job, wedding day. She had kept them all, along with the items they had taken from our house, in a storage unit. Tom just sat there through all of this, staring at the floor. When Jeremy finally confronted him directly, he tried to blame everything on their mom. He claimed she had manipulated him into helping her, that he never wanted to hurt Jeremy. But the security footage told a different story. He was often the one leading these invasions of our privacy. We're now in the process of getting lawyers involved. The statute of limitations might have run out on the original inheritance, but we're determined to recover whatever we can. We also want to get back all the personal items and letters they stole. Tom has been telling everyone in the family that we're trying to bankrupt him and Helen. He's painting us as greedy and cruel, saying we're attacking a struggling single mom and her son. Some relatives have bought into this narrative and have been calling us nonstop, telling us we should let it go because family is more important than money. Right now, Jeremy is struggling to process everything. Finding out that his mom not only stole his inheritance but actively hid letters from his dead father, it's a lot to take in. He barely sleeps, and when he does, he has nightmares. Sometimes he just sits in his office, staring at nothing. I'm doing my best to support him while dealing with my own anger at these people. Christmas is definitely cancelled. I don't think I could look at Helen or Tom without screaming. Some family members are still pressuring us to reconsider, but as far as I'm concerned, they lost the right to be called family when they spent years systematically betraying Jeremy's trust. I'll update again when we hear back from the lawyers. Update 2. The situation has gotten so much worse than we initially thought. After getting lawyers involved, we discovered that the inheritance theft was just scratching the surface of Helen and Tom's deception. The evidence we've uncovered has left both Jeremy and me completely shocked. Our lawyer did a deep dive into Jeremy's financial history, and what we found was disturbing. Helen hadn't just hidden Jeremy's inheritance, she had been actively using his identity since he was in college. She had opened multiple credit cards in his name when he was still living at her address. She maxed these cards out, using them to fund Tom's various failed business ventures, a gaming cafe that never opened, an online dropshipping business that lost money, and even a food truck that he sold after 2 weeks because the hours were too long. We found bank statements showing Helen had been accessing accounts in Jeremy's name for years. She had used his social security number to open these accounts when he was barely 18, right after his dad died. She would intercept the mail at her address, where Jeremy lived during college, to hide the evidence. This explained why Jeremy's credit was never great, despite him being so responsible with money. The family cabin revelation hit Jeremy the hardest. His dad had a small cabin in the mountains where he used to take Jeremy fishing. It was their special place, and his dad had specifically left it to Jeremy in his will. Helen sold it 6 years ago, claiming she needed the money for Tom's college fund. The same college he dropped out of after one semester because the professors didn't understand his learning style. When we confronted Tom with all this evidence, he finally cracked. He admitted that the sabotage of Jeremy's career wasn't just random acts of jealousy. They were worried that if Jeremy became too successful and financially stable, he might start asking questions about his inheritance and discover what they had done. Every time he got close to a promotion or major success, they would find ways to undermine him to keep him dependent on family support. The family has completely fractured over this. Helen's side of the family is defending her, saying she was just trying to be a good mother to both her sons. They're calling us heartless for pursuing legal action against her. Some have even suggested that Jeremy's dad would be ashamed of him for attacking his mother like this. But Jeremy's dad's side of the family has been incredibly supportive. His Aunt Jenny, Dad's sister, reached out and shared some shocking information. Apparently, she had always suspected something was wrong with how Helen handled the inheritance, but Helen had threatened to cut off her access to the grandkids if she said anything. Jenny gave us old photos of Jeremy and his dad that Helen had claimed were lost, plus letters his dad had written to him before he died. The most painful revelation came from one of these letters. Jeremy's dad had known he was sick for months before he died. He had written letters to Jeremy about everything he wouldn't be there to teach him, about marriage, career advice, even about becoming a father someday. Helen had kept all of these from Jeremy, later telling him that his dad's death was sudden and he hadn't left any messages. Tom's now trying to negotiate a deal, offering to testify against Helen in exchange for us dropping any claims against him. He sent a long email detailing every scheme they had pulled, trying to pin most of the blame on Helen. He claims she manipulated him into helping her, but the evidence shows he was often the one who came up with the plans to sabotage Jeremy. The legal proceedings are ongoing, but our lawyer seems confident about recovering at least some of what was stolen. We're also pressing charges for identity theft and fraud. Helen's been sending flying monkeys our way, relatives, old family friends, even our old neighbors, all trying to guilt us into dropping the charges. She's playing the "but I'm his mother" card hard, claiming she had a right to make financial decisions for her son. Jeremy has gone completely no contact with both of them. He's blocked their numbers and emails. He says he feels like his entire childhood was a lie, and he's struggling to separate his real memories from the manipulation. The only silver lining is that now he finally understands why things in his life never seemed to go as planned. It wasn't bad luck or his fault, it was his own family working against him. I'll update again when we have more news from the lawyers. Update 3. It's been a long 6 months since my last update, and while things aren't perfect, we're finally starting to see some light at the end of this tunnel. The legal proceedings are still ongoing, but we've made major changes in our lives that have helped us move forward. Jeremy accepted a promotion at his company's West Coast office. After all the sabotage came to light, his bosses were incredibly understanding. They even launched an internal investigation and found evidence of someone repeatedly trying to access his work email from unauthorized devices. The move has been good for us: new city, new home, new start. Before we moved, Helen and Tom made several desperate attempts to force a reconciliation. They showed up at our old house unannounced multiple times, not knowing we had already moved. Helen would leave long voicemails crying about how she did everything for the family. Tom tried to corner Jeremy at his old office, claiming he had more evidence against Helen that he would share if Jeremy dropped the charges against him. The legal battle has revealed even more ugly truths. Our lawyer found that Helen had also taken out loans in Jeremy's name to pay for Tom's failed businesses. She had been hiding tax documents, bank statements, and legal notices for years. The total amount she stole through identity theft and fraud was nearly triple what we initially thought. Some good news though: we managed to recover most of Jeremy's childhood items from Helen's storage unit. The letters from his dad, the baseball cards, the military medals, all of it was boxed up and hidden away. Reading those letters has been emotional for Jeremy. His dad wrote about how proud he was of Jeremy's drive and determination, how he knew Jeremy would succeed in life. It's heartbreaking that Helen kept these from him for so long. Jeremy's Aunt Jenny has been amazing through all this. She shared so many stories about Jeremy's dad that Helen had twisted or hidden over the years. We found out his dad had actually set up a college fund for Jeremy that Helen cleaned out before he even graduated high school. Every revelation just confirms that we made the right choice in cutting contact. Helen's still trying to control the narrative. She sent a lengthy email last week about how she did everything for the good of the family. She claimed she was trying to protect both her sons by making sure they had equal opportunities. She even suggested that Jeremy's dad would have changed the will if he had lived longer because Tom needed more support. The extended family is still divided. Helen's side has mostly cut contact with us, which is fine. They're still posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about ungrateful children and the importance of forgiving family. Tom's been telling anyone who'll listen that he was just a victim of Helen's manipulation, but the evidence says otherwise. As for Christmas this year, we're building new traditions. We're spending it with my family and some of Jeremy's dad's relatives who have supported us. Jenny and her kids are flying out to visit us. It's smaller than our usual family gatherings, but it feels more genuine. Jeremy is doing better now that he's away from all the toxicity. His career is thriving without constant sabotage, and he's finally starting to trust his own abilities again. He's been connecting with his dad's old friends and learning about the man his father really was, not the version Helen created. The lawyers say the case could drag on for another year, but we're prepared for that. Sometimes I look at everything we've been through and can't believe this is real life. But then I remember how much better things are now without toxic family members trying to tear us down, and I know we made the right choice. I don't think I'll be updating again unless something major happens with the legal case. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey.